everyone. Great to have you all here, and great to be back for another episode for our Privacy for Web3 hackathon. Today, we are joined by the Ocean team, and they'll be taking us through basically their track, introducing a little bit of Ocean, their tech, what they're doing. My name is Matej. I'm the head of partnerships here at Oasis. And I just have to say, I'm coming to you live here from Amsterdam, from World Summit AI, where we're one of the few Web3 representatives pushing for decentralized AI, where everybody else is more focused on, how to, let's say, how to regulate, how to have responsible AI, within decentralized systems. And we're trying to, be the opposing view of maybe we should try to be distributed and see consensus that way. And I have to say, I had a talk on decentralized AI and how it can bring basically data sovereignty back to the user. And I also mentioned you guys what Ocean is doing with compute to data, bringing compute to data versus vice versa, where data is being collected and brought to the compute side. So I'm very excited for this workshop to hear what you guys are doing, and maybe a quick intro from you guys, who you are, what you do, what got you what got you to be involved in crypto and Web3 and blockchain, and then we can continue with a little bit of a presentation on Ocean.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks a lot for having us here and for hosting this. And thanks everyone for joining. Looking forward to get stuck into it. So my name is Jamie Hewitt. I've worked at Ocean Protocol for now, I think, 3.5 years. I'm on the core developer team. So Ocean, kind of has a bunch of different products, all of which run on the same set of smart contracts and the same middleware. And that's essentially what we're developing in the core development team. Is at the moment what we'll present is something called Ocean Node. We'll get into that a little bit more later. But I'm a full stack JavaScript, TypeScript developer. And as we get into, that's predominantly the stack that we're using at the moment. We'll get more into the details later on. But and Bogdan is also with us here today as well.
Yep. Hi everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Bogdan. I'm with Ocean Protocol since late 2020, so started during some tough times for everyone. My background is similar with Jamie's background, so full stack JavaScript developer. My main projects that I've been working on since joining Ocean were Ocean Nodes, the monitoring and the reward system related to Ocean Nodes, and Ocean JS, Ocean CLI, and many more. Today, I'll try to help Jamie with the presentation. I will try to walk you through the architecture of Ocean Nodes, and we'll briefly mention some things related to how you can leverage the protocol stack to inspire you for your hackathon projects, and touching some points related to the Oasis Sapphire integration. So I think that will be enough for the presentation, then we can kick in. Thanks everyone for joining, and let's have a great session.
Okay, so perhaps I will kick things off just by sharing my screen, because I think before we get into too many details, I just want to point out a few resources that will be handy. So perhaps if I go over anything too quickly, or perhaps want to reference this, I think it's great just to know where everything is, so you can come back to it later on. So this is our documentation. This has way more details than what I'm going to be explaining today, and hopefully it answers just about all the questions. I definitely recommend heading over here after we finish today, and having a little bit more of a read in terms of like what is Ocean Node and what it does. You'll get here also the link to our Discord. That's also super important, because inevitably at some point, I'm sure you have some questions, and that's where we'll be hanging out. And there's very thriving community there of people that will be also trying to help you out and answer any questions if you run into any difficulties. So that's something that I highly recommend. I'll give a brief introduction into Ocean Protocol and the node before we get more into the details. So Ocean Protocol, for anybody that doesn't know, focuses on the monetization of data and primarily focuses on doing that in a way that's privacy preserving. So that's like at the core of everything that we do. It's all about monetizing data in that privacy preserving way. And one of our key products links into that is called Compute Data. And that's all about essentially sending an algorithm to the data set, having the algorithm run on the data set, and then getting the results back without ever revealing the core part of the data. So you can essentially have something like health records that's very, very sensitive, and you perhaps want to monetize it, but you can't because of things like GDPR. But then if you say, okay, we can't monetize the data, we can't sell it, but we could perhaps have people find like the median age of the patient, or run much more complicated algorithms on it, but at a cost. That's something that Ocean Protocol allows people to do. So there's various different parts to our stack, and obviously at the kind of most fundamental level, we've got the smart contracts, which is right at the back of everything. And then we have libraries to access, and we have also the front end in terms of Ocean Market. But in between those two, we have middleware, and essentially what the middleware is doing is a couple of roles. One of which is acting as a sort of gatekeeper in terms of who should actually have permissions to access that data set. And another role it has is also in terms of like indexing the data, so make it easier to find what's available, find what metadata is available about the data sets. But in terms of like, why did we build Ocean Node? Ocean Node, by the way, is the middleware, and it's now the singular middleware that we have. Before we had 3 different repositories that is essentially what it's replacing. Provider, which did that role of being the kind of proxy or the gatekeeper to the data. We had then Aquarius and Subgraph as well. But we had a lot of conversations with our users over quite a few years of running that setup, and we did always get complaints about the difficulty of actually kind of running those different components. For a start, these are all written in different languages. So while a lot of the rest of our stack is in TypeScript or JavaScript, these 2 components were in Python. So now that's slightly different. And then Subgraph is typically written in assembly script. So it wasn't super seamless, like just setting up your own stack and running it on your behalf. What we were finding was increasingly a lot of people were using our provider. And the provider, given the fact that that's such an important role in terms of being the gatekeeper to the data sets, it's also incredibly important that that's a decentralized component. I often think that your stack is only as decentralized as your most centralized component. And if you have one component right in the middle of everything, the centralized, it becomes harder and harder to complain that you're a truly decentralized organization. And to some extent, that was what was happening with Provider, because everybody's using our provider. If it ever went down or if it was ever compromised, the data sets that it was providing access to would also become compromised. So we actually found it very important that we then moved into a situation where we had a fully decentralized middleware component. And we also wanted to make sure we had just one singular middleware component. So it can just be started up, a single Docker container, or if you're doing local development, it's just simple npm run build, npm run start. And we want to just make it as seamless as possible for any developer, just to get that started. So they weren't having necessarily to rely on the components that we were deploying. And they would be kind of fully autonomous, but also operating in a decentralized network. So that's a little bit about how we kind of came to this decision in terms of what we were going to build. Something else that I want to point out is there's this blog post here that's very useful because this specifies the incentive program that we have in place for running an Ocean node. So essentially at the moment, it's just all about running a node and making sure it's actually available and externally accessible. So this will run you through how you get rewarded for running a node, how the rewards are calculated. It's all about the uptime essentially. And then there's a bit towards the end that in the demo. So this is just a kind of a brief overview in terms of how to get set up. There's some useful links here that you perhaps need depending on your hardware if you're trying to make your ports externally accessible. But yeah, I recommend that as a resource perhaps to come back to, because we do always get a lot of questions about the incentive program. And then a couple other things I'll point out at the top, one of which is this dashboard that we have that shows all the nodes that are available. You can see that currently we have almost 40,000 nodes running, which I think would fair to say far exceeded our expectation, given the fact that they're only was released during the summer. So that's really great. And then something else that's also an important reference point is actually the repository on GitHub. So all of our code is all open source. You'll find hopefully all the documentation you need. What we're going to be running through later is actually this guide here with this README. So I'll be picking up on that in a bit. But I think one other thing that's worth pointing out, there are plenty of additional resources, but one that you might actually find useful is this environmental variables guide. Because when you get into the point of wanting to actually customize your node, you'll have to take a look over that to figure out all the different things that it can actually do. But yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. But I'll hand over to Bogdan now, who will give us a bit more on the architecture and the different components within the Ocean node.
Yep. So I'll try to guide you a little bit through the architecture of Ocean nodes. So we'll begin with the summarizing of the structure and the key components, as Jamie mentioned, of the Ocean nodes. This will help you understand how Ocean nodes work under the hood and how you can leverage its feature in your own hackathon project. So the Ocean nodes were designed with a modular and scalable architecture to enable decentralized data exchanges. So there are three main layers to this architecture. So the first one would be the network layer. This layer handles secure peer-to-peer communication between the nodes in the network using libp2p library. And the second one would be the HTTP API protocols that are handling the standard interactions between the end user and the nodes, even between the nodes, and so on. The second layer would be the components layer. Here, we can find key services like indexer and provider. So the indexer is the component that replaced the old queries that Jamie mentioned. And replacing means that it monitors the blockchain events like metadata created, metadata updated, order events, etc. It also stores the DDOs off-chain. And while doing all these operations, it performs various validations during these processes. Also supports multi-chain data queries and so on. The other one, the other main component, like the name suggests, is the provider that verifies the consumer permissions, encrypts and decrypts data, and supports the C2D, the computer data operations. So similar with the indexer, it replaced the old Ocean provider component by integrating all of those together. And the third one, and I think this is the most important nowadays, it's the modules layer. Maybe you will have the possibility to play with this the most, because this layer allows flexibility, let's say, so for enabling or disabling various components in the stack. So based on your project needs. With this layer, we can you can either let's say start a node with lightweight C2D operations. You can use more complex tasks. Very soon you will have the possibility to run Ocean nodes with 2 database configurations depending on your needs. Now the default module is the TypeSense module, but very soon we'll be releasing a new version of Ocean nodes that is going to add support for Elastic database, and based on your level of understanding and the needs and the flexibility that you want, you will be able to choose what you want to use. There's also the possibility to start Ocean nodes without a database. There's a built-in SQLite that will help you with the logs and other important stuff. As I've mentioned in the beginning, we've recently integrated also the Oasis Sapphire network, and we've done this to enhance the Ocean nodes security and privacy preserving features. This strengthens the privacy of data handling and in the following ways. So the first thing that I would like to mention is that it enhances data privacy by integrating Sapphire. We can now perform on-chain validation and computation without compromising privacy of data used and so on. We had that before, but this was done by the provider component. Now you are able to use the newly integrated system and network to perform this at the chain level. It's easy to integrate because we've built it as a new template to our stack, so you can choose between the publishing and the consuming paths that you want to follow by just specifying a template ID that you want to use from our smart contracts. And soon Sapphire will help us to ensure data used in compute jobs as well, because we can use it for preserving privacy during execution of compute jobs, and to allow secure C2D jobs operations where sensitive data can be processed without exposure. So these are maybe the main reasons which led us to the integration of Oasis Sapphire network that you can use in your hackathon ideas. I will try to also point the key topics of the Ocean nodes. Mains would be resilience, because we can now distribute data across multiple nodes to ensure redundancy and availability. Security, because encryption is enforced at every level nowadays, and with the Oasis Sapphire integration, we added an extra layer of protection to our stack. Scalability, because Ocean nodes are modular, meaning that they can scale based off of your project needs. Like I mentioned before, with the module layer that you can choose, for example, one database, the other one, depending on your needs of your project. And the flexibility that comes with a peer-to-peer network, because now nodes can share requests and data, even if, for example, the local databases are missing some objects or some data, and this makes the system highly available. But most of these things will be also highlighted by Jamie in the next session of starting up an Ocean node and further down with our demo sessions. So Jamie, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Bogdan. So I'll just share my screen again, so we can get stuck into a bit of a demo. So I think one of the things that we really want to show is that it's actually very easy and straightforward to actually set up and run your Ocean node. This, by the way, is just the documentation on the architecture, some of which Bogdan was just talking about now. So you can always return back to that as a bit of a reference. But yeah, so in terms of running an Ocean node, I'll basically just show you the steps that are involved right now. So here I'm actually working in a virtual machine. So this is on the Google Cloud Platform. So I'll run the node here, and then I'll access it locally, and we'll just show some of its functionality. But I'm just here in empty repository. And first thing we need to do is just download the script that we've got on GitHub for setting up the Docker Compose file. So just pull that script from GitHub. I will change the permissions on it just to ensure that we can run it. And then, yeah, all we have to then do is just run the script, and it will ask us a few kind of straightforward questions. And then we'll have our Docker Compose file. So first question here is, do you have a private key? Probably a lot of you do. If you don't, you can just say no. That's not a problem. It will generate one for you. I already have a private key, so I'll be able to enter it now. Obviously, don't share your private key with anybody. Don't do a live hosting event where you paste it in the command line terminal. That's just a private key for testing, of course, but keep that safe, because now when we send rewards, that will be the address associated with that private key will be the one that we send those rewards to. So next thing we need to do is adding a wallet address that you can actually connect to the node with to be able to perform admin actions. So this actually perhaps should be different to the one that is the private key, which is kind of basically running the node. This is his address that you perhaps got in MetaMask, is one that you're comfortable using in the browser. You'll be able to access the dashboard and interact with it. So that's the address I'll be inputting. Now, the next couple of questions are incredibly important if you want to be able to receive the rewards. So this is a step that we actually very frequently notice perhaps goes wrong, is when you assign these ports, you need to assign ports that are externally accessible, because obviously we need to be able to reach your node. We need to be able to send commands to it via HTTP. We also need to send commands to it over peer-to-peer as well. So in this particular instance, when I set up this virtual machine, I specified 8000 and 8001 to be open ports to make sure that they're reachable externally. So that's what I'm going to use here. So I'll use the default 8000 for that one, and then I'll use 8001 for the peer-to-peer port. And for the next couple, I'll just use the defaults. If you're on your local machine, you will perhaps need to check the settings that are specific for your hardware when it comes to make sure that your ports are externally available. And if you mention, just quickly remember this blog post that I mentioned, we've got some links here to a couple of different hardware manufacturers for routers that will explain how to just check that your ports are actually available. So that's something to check over. If you start your node and notice it's not available externally and you're not getting rewards, that's something to look into. So the next question is about your IP address. So the reason we need your IP address is essentially we need to announce it to the network. We need to tell the rest of the network, what IP address can your node be reached upon. That will be probably announced to the rest of the network, and then you'll start connecting to peers. So like if you're like me and you're running in a virtual machine, you'll know your IP because you will have needed that anyway, just to be able to SSH into the terminal. If you're on your local machine, it's as simple as just Googling what's my IP address, click on the first link, and you'll get your IP address, and it's pretty much as simple as that. So that's now actually everything. So you'll notice that has actually generated the Docker Compose file for us. So we can take a quick look at that before we run it. And essentially, this is setting up all the different environmental variables that we'll set when we're actually starting and running the node. So one of the key things that I'll point out is this, which is the RPCs. So we have a default list of RPCs that will be inserted if you're running with this quick start script. Sometimes these are all public RPCs. So sometimes they're not always as reliable as the private ones. So I think if you're taking this slightly more seriously and you want to make sure that you're indexing every block as soon as it's available, you'll actually replace some of these with private RPCs that you'd get from Infura, Alchemy, whatever your chosen provider is, and that will make it more reliable. You'll also notice there's a whole bunch of things here that are commented out, and these essentially are all optional. And in fact, everything is optional apart from the private key, because like Bogdan mentioned, you can run a very, very light node. It doesn't have to do indexing. It doesn't even have to run a provider if you really don't want it to. It doesn't have to have a database. So you've got an awful lot of flexibility in terms of how much or how little you want your node to be able to do. And if you're interested in getting more into these details, I'd recommend, as I was saying before, having a look at this guide that will explain exactly what all the different environmental variables do. I think for when you're first starting, you can kind of ignore this a little bit and just run with the defaults. But particularly for things like logs, you might at some point want the logs to be stored in the database, which isn't actually the default. And you might want just a bit more flexibility and customized approach. So that's just letting you know what you can perhaps do further down the line. But for now, we will just run the node. So it's just a simple Docker compose up, and that will start the node for us. So it's pulling the images, and then you can see it started the database, the TypeSense database first of all. That's the first thing it's done. There are, at the moment, we actually have different options for different types of databases that you can run with it. But default is still TypeSense. And then this is one thing that we're looking out for. You can see all these warnings for different missing environmental variables. These are all things that are optional, so you can actually ignore this. So that's not actually essential. But the important thing that we're looking for here is the peer ID. So this is your node ID. So you can come over to this dashboard that I briefly mentioned earlier, and here now you can actually search for your node, and you'll be able to get some information here about the status of your node, and a bit more about it. This is a dashboard that's still in development. So there are a few things here that we'll be improving upon in the next couple of weeks, and adding more functionality, things like that. So we're always always keen to get more feedback. I think there's a bit of a lag right now with the internet in terms of actually reaching out and accessing that. One of the tests that we always recommend that people do in terms of checking that their node is available is doing a telnet command. So from a different machine, so where I was before, I'm on the virtual machine, now I'm just on my local laptop. If you run the telnet command, which is just telnet, then you put your IP address and then the ports where you've specified should be available from. You should be able to connect, and you see here now we're connected to the node, and then we close the connection. But that essentially lets us know that it is reachable, and that's the peer-to-peer port that we were actually accessing right then. So that's a useful check. If it's not set up properly or your port's not accessible, what you'll see is it will just stay on that trying right until it times out, and then you'll just get a timeout error. So that shows us that the port is accessible. And I can briefly show you also, you can also reach it via HTTP as well. So this is the HTTP port, same IP address that we are running from. So if I just send a command to the root endpoint, this is what you'll now get back. So you'll see it very helpfully tells you all the different HTTP endpoints that are reachable. Tells you whether it's a GET request, POST request, or whatever. And that's at the root endpoint. So I'll just do another quick demo on that. So if I use the direct command endpoint and send a status request, we should get back the status of our node. So you can see here it's got the same ID that we had before. That's the public key now associated with it. We've got the address that's associated with the wallet address that we had. It's letting us know the version we're running, which is the latest, and then some information in terms of the provider of the networks it's running on. This exactly equates to that information we had in the RPCs mentioned before in the environmental variables. And then all these are also the networks that we're indexing as well. And then a bit of information about the platform that we're running on and things like that. So there's one other thing that I will show you, which is you have like basically a local dashboard or control panel where you can see a little bit more about how the node is actually running. So this is available on your IP address, and then it's the HTTP port /dashboard, and you'll find here again. This is now giving us the information on how many nodes we're connected to. It also gives us a bit of a status in terms of the indexer. If it's having trouble indexing any of these chains, these will change color, and it will tell you if there's errors. That can happen if there's problems with the RPC, for example, like I mentioned before. And then if you're indexing anything particular, you'll see a queue here, and you've got a bit more information available in this dashboard. That this is useful just to check up on every now and again. And you can also see the same node ID is available there. If you connect your wallet with the address that you inserted as for the admin access, you'll then also get admin actions available. So you can, from this dashboard, you can also stop the node. You can request the logs. You can request it to start re-indexing. This is where you'd come if you want to operate the admin actions. If you don't want to, now operate via the command line, or you send a peer-to-peer command, you can just come do that with a user interface. Okay, so the next thing that basically I'll demonstrate is how to actually interact with the node, from another machine, how to publish an asset. Before I get into that, I'll hand back over to Bogdan, who will give us a bit of introduction on Ocean CLI, which will actually be the tool that I'll be using to kind of demo the interactivity of the node.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. So pretty nice demo for our send. As you mentioned, we'll try to switch a bit the focus now and go a little bit more in depth with the usage of the Ocean node. And Jamie will be doing some hands-on with the Ocean CLI. What is Ocean CLI? So Ocean CLI, it's a command line tool built on top of OceanJS library, and it was designed to help users interact smoothly with the Ocean protocol technology stack. Initially, it was built on top of our components like Provider, Aquarius, and the existing stack, but we've refined it to work with Ocean Node as well. It's also backwards compatible, so it will still work with the previous stack that we still have up and running, but it now supports also Ocean Node interactions. What you can do with the Ocean CLI, so like main functionalities of our Ocean node, like publishing data sets, whether it's downloadable data or we are talking about algorithms or computer data sets, you can publish all of them using the Ocean CLI. You can publish them via JSON files, and you will be able to publish them also with an interactive way, like the one with starting up an Ocean node that Jamie presented. It will be something similar applied on the CLI. You can modify also modify data sets, metadata, the compute settings of the data sets, using a thing that everyone is familiar, everyone in the development field is familiar, like JSON files. So editing some JSON files and just starting an edit command with the CLI. You will also be able to use the Ocean CLI for data consumption. You can download the data set with just a simple command, which will handle under the hood the purchasing of the data tokens, ordering of the assets, and also triggering the download to the preferred location that you specify in that download command. And furthermore, you can use the CLI to run compute to data. It's a similar process with all those that I mentioned before. You just need to define both data sets or algorithm. You can run algorithms with the CLI on multiple data sets. So that's also a possibility that we added. And the CLI will take care of the rest, and it will be starting the jobs. It will be doing everything under the hood, like ordering both data sets, and the algorithm also taking care of choosing the environment, and if you don't specify them, and starting the compute jobs. And as I mentioned before, we have recently extended the CLI capabilities to add support also to the newly integrated OASIS Sapphire network. With the interactive publish flow, now you can specify the template ID that you want to use during the publish process. So either you're going to use the old flow that's encrypting and decrypting data using our provider components. Either you want to choose the newly added template 4 that was built in our smart contracts and enables you to encrypt and do this encryption and decryption processes on chain. So if you're a developer, I think you'll all appreciate how flexible the Ocean CLI is. It's an open source project. You can customize it for your needs if you want to use to test stuff or just to make it work for the demos. It's the easiest and fastest way to run demos. That's why we chose it, and that's why Jamie will use it. And for more details, you can always check the GitHub repository or the Ocean docs, where we have various examples of usage, how to install it, and all these kinds of things. So Jamie, back to you to see the demo.
Great, yeah, thanks a lot for giving that overview. So what basically I will go into is just showing you how to interact with the Ocean node via the CLI. Before I do so, I'll just quickly show you this the nodes dashboard that we have here, because I think it was just taking slightly longer to load before. But if you paste in your node ID here, this is where you can come to see all of the nodes that are available. So this is where you can check the eligibility. This is the eligibility check that we're running to make sure that we know if your node is properly set up and available to receive rewards. So after running it, setting it up, you should hopefully get a green tick there. That can take in the region of about an hour and a half before it appears, just because there are now so many nodes running that it takes us a while just to check on all of them. If there are any issues, it will be reported here. So if it's got some sort of problem, or there was a timeout when the request was sent, you'll find that reported on this dashboard. But now for the next step, we'll actually interact with the node. So what we'll be using is Ocean CLI, as Bogdan mentioned. The place to go to get started is obviously head over to GitHub. You'll clone the repo, you do an npm install, and then npm run build, and then can run it from there. You'll need to set the environmental variables to be able to do so. But just briefly before I do that, I'll mention the fact that Ocean CLI is essentially built on OceanJS. And OceanJS is the library that you might actually more likely find yourself using when you actually build something, in the hackathon. So you might not want to build a CLI tool. You might want to build, React Native app, or maybe a Next.js website. It really could be anything, and the much more flexible use case for that would be to use OceanJS, which now is the library that we have that's also available on npm, so you can just install it directly. There's a whole bunch of useful examples here in these code examples files that you can use pretty much as copy and paste just to get started with that. But for the kind of ease of doing a demo now, we'll actually show you using the CLI, just the process of publishing and consuming. It's a great place to do that, because we also kind of, as we do so, we learn a bit more about how the Ocean Stack works. So as I mentioned, so I've cloned the repository, I've installed all the dependencies. That's the only thing I've done before coming over here. The next step now is I have to export the environmental variables. So RPC I'll be using today is on the Oasis Sapphire test network. And then we also have to specify the node URL, including the HTTP port as well. We need a private key, because this now is what's going to be paying for our transactions on the Oasis Sapphire network. So before coming over here, I loaded that with some Rose tokens on the test network, just headed over to the faucet to get some tokens there. And then I've also specified where my contracts are stored locally. That's actually optional, but it can help depending how you're setting it up. So first thing I'll do, I'll showcase using the interactive CLI command that we have. So this will again just run us through some quick questions just to get started. So it's setting up using that account. Okay, so what's the name of the asset? It's just going to be a test asset for today. But you can imagine that you'll have a title that's appropriate. Asset, we often talk about data. It doesn't have to be data like a CSV. It might be an MP3 file. It could be MP4 if you're doing a video. It essentially could be any sort of digital assets. So now we'll just do a description. Anything in particular. Who's the author of this asset? It's me. You might want to put something a little bit more descriptive, but it doesn't have to be actual name. It could be a pseudonym or something. Tags. So these make your asset easier to search. So if you head over to market.oceanprotocol.com and start searching for different assets that are available, these tags are used to help find exactly what you're looking for. So I'll just put some examples in there. The next question is about how long should the consumer be able to access this asset for after purchasing it. So this essentially it's almost like if you were to have a subscription model, or if you want them just to purchase it and have it forever. So the consumer won't actually ever get access to the location of the data. It'll always be streamed to them. So it's not like we'll give them the URL where the data is hosted and they'll get it there. So if they want to, if it's a data set that's frequently updated, and maybe your business model revolves around, almost like a subscription, you want them to come back, you would say, okay, I only want them to be able to access it for a month before they have to come back and purchase access again. So that's a mechanism you can use to kind of, perhaps, increase your revenue. But if it's a sort of fairly static asset that's not changing, then likelihood is you'll just say, make it available forever, which is what I'll do today. And then you can specify where your asset is actually being stored. So you can use either Arweave IPFS. We have our own uploader as well that you can use if you want to upload things to either those two storage mechanisms, or you can just use the URL if you're hosting it perhaps on something like AWS S3. That's really up to you in terms of how you want your asset to be stored. And then you can provide the address. So I've got an example CSV that I'll be using for this purpose, and that's the URL heads over to that asset. Now we decide, do you want it to be free or do you want it to be paid? I'm feeling in a generous mood, so I'll say it can be free. But if you want it to be paid, you've got a choice of different currencies that you can accept. And then we decide which network we want it to be available on. So for today, I'll use the Oasis Sapphire network, and we'll publish to there. So this collected the responses. That's what I've inputted. First thing it'll do, it'll format that, put it into a DDO, which is essentially the metadata that we'll be publishing on chain. And then the next step is to publish a data NFT. The data NFT is an ERC-721 token. So that's the kind of unique representation of this, the ownership of this asset on chain. You can see we've got the address there of the NFT once it's published. And then the data token is what's used to actually access the data. So an analogy that we often use to describe this is like if there was a movie, the rights to the movie are the data token. The person that actually owns the movie. And then the data token is like the ticket or the cost of admission. So if you want to then purchase a copy of this data set, you need to buy a data token, and the data token is what is exchanged for access. The data token is a ERC20 token. So next thing we'll do, I'll just show you how to do, you can also request the metadata, which is the get DDO command. And then what we need to do is we need to paste in the DID. By the way, the one thing I didn't mention, the last step of that is it's updating the metadata. So after it's published, then when you get the actual NFT address and the data token address, it then updates it to make sure those are included in the metadata. So we'll do get DDO, and we'll paste in the DID for the assets. So we just check that our node is indexed it properly, and we're able to request it. You can notice here in the data that we've actually provided, the provided URL is the IP address of the Ocean node that we just started running 10 minutes ago. So we can see now, yeah, okay, that's great. We did actually manage to access the data, so it's been indexed correctly on our on our node. So the last thing that I will show is download. So to do the download, we just paste in again the DID, and then we just specify a local location where you want the download to happen. I typed in the command wrong, so I'll just edit that quickly. And yeah, so we'll download it. And what's happening in the background now is the private key that I provided, that I mentioned, has got, I loaded it with some testnet tokens before. That is now purchasing a data token. It then sends the data token to the owner of the asset. The revenue recipient is specified in the data NFT. So that's how you know who receives the revenue. And then the Ocean node will check that we've actually sent that data token before then it gives access to the data set. And then that data set is then streamed to the user. So I'm the user here, and it says it's downloaded successfully. So let's just check out that folder and see if the asset is there, and it looks like it is. So yeah, we can have a quick look at it. And yeah, that's the data that we published and then we subsequently consumed. So I think that shows more or less in terms of the consumption, that is basically the full flow. Now, that's good for a demo, and you guys are going to kind of perhaps take this to the next step in terms of building different things with your Ocean nodes. And I think that's what we're now going to talk about a little bit more, is in terms of like the use cases for your Ocean node, what you can build with it. I'll hand back over to Bogdan at this point. We will get time at the end, hope, for questions, because I've noticed them have started coming through. But I think I'll just briefly hand over to Bogdan now.
Yeah, we'll now talk about how you can leverage the Ocean Node in your hackathon projects, and I will try to start with the Ocean Protocol template. Let me see if I can quickly share the screen as well. Okay.
I just gotta say, great presentation so far. Maybe Jamie, if there are any like short questions you can maybe address in the meantime.
Let me. Yeah, while you're just sharing your screen, Bogdan, I'll ask a question. So, first question I can see is like, what is the technical challenges that you should watch out for when tokenizing data? So, one thing I think we really wanted to get through across in this kind of like hour-long hackathon is how it actually doesn't necessarily need to be complicated. You don't necessarily need to face any challenges. So, what I've just shown, in a sort of 20, 25 minute time frame is the full process of setting up your own node and then publishing an asset, which we would say that is the tokenization process. So the intellectual property associated with that asset, revenue stream attached to it as well. So that process of monetizing, if you go through with the CLI, like you see, you can do that in 2-3 commands and it's done. So it doesn't have to be too complicated. And then it's a very simple process if you do it with OceanJS as well. So like I was saying, you can kind of copy and paste some of the examples. And I think what we're hoping that you guys will get out of this hackathon is not necessarily finding any challenges with tokenizing data. Hopefully we've done enough to make that easy for you. But the real world challenges are the ones that you're likely to face. What is the data going to be? How are you going to get access to it? Is it going to be crowdfunded? Is it going to be linked to a DAO? Is it going to be, something related to AI? Those are really where I see the challenges, is not necessarily in publishing the data, but much more in the kind of real world applications of this. So, deciding what your use case is, finding if there are consumers that are interested in that use case. So those are the kind of challenges that I'd say we see. But yeah, let me hand back over to Bogdan.
Yep, thank you, Jamie. So we'll start with the Ocean Protocol templates, as mentioned earlier. This can be looked as a starting point or a reference for your hackathon project, because those templates provide some pre-built-in components and examples to help you get off the ground faster and show what things can be developed on top of our stack. So we offer several templates. I will try to go through all of them quickly. So I'm not going to deep dive into them, but I'm just going to show some perspective from them. You just I think a thing that we need to set in stone at the moment is that you don't need to follow them exactly. They're just starting points to help you see what's possible. You can build things from scratch, entirely new things. You can maybe try to adapt some of the ideas that are in the Ocean templates section, or you can customize them and so on. So the sky is the limit when it comes to the things that you can create on top of Ocean nodes. So I'll try to quickly go through some of them. So maybe you will get inspired by some of them. I'll start firstly with decentralized data marketplace. So this is the Ocean Market, a decentralized marketplace for peer-to-peer online data exchange. So this was the first, or one of the first POCs that were done on top of Ocean Protocol stack to showcase the possibilities that we offer. Then something similar, another marketplace, but a music NFT marketplace where you can buy on-demand music NFTs. This is Ocean Waves. This tree So the next one as well, the token gated content, that's a decentralized platform where you can token gate some of your content. So those provide also some built components that you can take a look. There are some GitHub repos listed here. You can just clone them, take a look how they use the Ocean stack, and try to adapt them to adapt your ideas to use Ocean Node instead of the previous Ocean protocol stack. Then, similar with the one before, we have the token gated chatbot, and 2 more templates related to workshops and books on demand. So those are same data marketplaces. Further down, you can see a template that allows you to buy templates, UI kits, and plugins. There's another interesting template. This is a mobile app, decentralized ticketing mobile app. So as Jamie said, you can build React native apps as well on top of Ocean Node. And yeah, the last but not least would be the Ocean Art, when you can publish and collect digital art. So yeah, those are some ideas that we have decided to share with the community, and to maybe mention here in this workshop for all of you to try to get inspired. So whatever you're deciding to build, there's a bunch of use cases, as you've seen. So decentralized data marketplaces, when you can allow data owners to publish data sets or to consume, purchase, and various assets, as you've seen here, either data, either MP3s, and other formats of content, of assets. So then you can also think about compute to data applications, where you can build apps where the computation is done by the Ocean Node without the need of moving data and preserving privacy. You can think of something like that. On various data monetization solutions, pricing mechanism, as you've seen previously in the CLI demo. There can be free assets, paid assets, and so on. And yeah, so those would be some of the things that maybe can inspire you. You can also think of secure AI tools, or I don't know, something completely new that I've not mentioned here. So there are endless possibilities that you guys can explore and can build, and we are excited to see what we'll need to evaluate and to in the submit process. So to wrap things up, I would like to maybe encourage you to be creative. As we've shown in this 1 hour workshop, the Ocean Node flexibility is a really important thing to take in mind, and you can build almost anything that involves decentralized asset sharing or data sharing, computation, or secure preserving applications or data. So yeah, don't feel limited to the example we've shown. Explore the templates, push boundaries, and try to create something that it's unique, because you'll get more chances to get rewarded during this hackathon when it ends. As Jamie mentioned, feel free to reach us for support, for resources on our Discord channel. There's a dedicated forum channel on our Discord. We'll try to guide you and to offer feedback on your projects, and try to remove the blockers that you will face during the implementation. So, Jamie,
Great to
if you
hear
want
the-
to.
There's one other
Thank
thing
you.
that I realized we haven't mentioned yet that I just wanted to add is we also have a Python library as well, OceanPy. So I'm sure there are plenty of people listening that aren't necessarily JavaScript developers. We have the equivalent of OceanJS for Python. So if you're much more thinking about something like a data scientist point of view, some sort of machine learning application, you might want to check out the OceanPy library.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, guys. Bogdan, as you said, the templates are great to bootstrap. Then, we'd love to see, users, developers, take that 1, 2, 3, 4 steps forward and actually surprise us with what they come up with. We're close to basically a little bit over the hour mark, but we do have still a few questions that were posted in the chat, so maybe we can see if we can quickly address those still. Maybe the next one was, how do Ocean Nodes handle scalability, especially when multiple data sets are tokenized and traded at the same time? Maybe Jamie or Bogdan, if you can.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll just start on that, and then Bogdan can add on to it. So we're using the lib peer-to-peer library, which is built by Protocol Labs, as the way for the peer-to-peer network to basically to scale up. And it is scalable, as it comes out of the box. So the more nodes that are added, the more reliable that network can be, and they can broadcast the peer-to-peer commands over the whole network. In terms of each individual node, that slightly depends on your use case. So for computer data in particular, where there will be a need for much more computing resources, we will actually add more functionality in the future to let people know what the node is actually capable of. So if they're purchasing compute time on a specific node, they will be aware of, is this a node that has a GPU? Is it run on a Raspberry Pi? What can I expect? So if the node perhaps isn't capable of doing what you're going to request, you would choose a different node for that purpose. But that's something else that we'll be developing perhaps later this year. Is there anything you want to add on scalability, Bogdan?
No. So you've touched the main topic that needs to be addressed here, and that's for sure the C2D. So in terms of scalability, C2D is the most important area to look into when you need to scale things up. So as I mentioned, we are soon going to offer various possibilities of using nodes with light C2D versions or more in-depth ones, using Docker, using Kubernetes, using our already in place solutions. So that would be a thing to have in mind when you think about scalability of the Ocean Node. So around computer data, and networking is an important thing to take into account. So you need a reliable network to be able to process those big amount of peer commands or direct commands or whatnot coming from the peer network.
Yeah, understandable. One more question is basically it's actually very particular. If we want to extend the Ocean Node, the best place to put new components would be in the components or modules part.
Right. I saw Robin mention that. First of all, I mean, I would perhaps suggest, Robin, maybe you message us and give us a brief intro into what you're planning to build, because it really depends. I think most of the use cases that we're envisioning people building out of this hackathon actually don't involve people building, within the Ocean Node repository. We're thinking about, people building on top using the node, but building, with OceanJS, perhaps with OceanPy. Maybe it's a consumer application, or it's something that's kind of got a B2B use case. that was our kind of initial vision. But if you've got a use case that you think should be part of the actual node, it really depends. I mean, if you were going to add, for example, additional logging functionality, that will, be in a different place compared to if you're going to add, a new database or, some sort of, lightweight integration. So we're not trying to be limiting in any sense here, but it really depends on what you're trying to build. So
All right, so that would probably best to. Yeah, that would probably best then to follow up in Discord or in one of the support channels to see what he's thinking about and if it's applicable here, or maybe you can steer him the right direction.
Right.
I think
actually I've seen he's just messaged saying he wants to build LLM into the node, which is a great idea, by the way. There's a couple of ways that you could do that. But yeah, like we said, maybe perhaps we best chat about that on Discord, because I don't want to get too much into the details. But it's a great idea. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, if we see that as one of the hackathon project submissions, I think it'd be very interesting. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So we've seen your post on Discord, Robin. So we'll come back to you, but we wanted first to reach out to all the community, and then we'll come back to feedback on those exciting ideas that you guys will share on Discord. So, but we wanted first to kick off in this manner, and we'll come back on Discord to answer all the questions.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, guys. I think we're gonna wrap things up here. We're a little past over the hour mark, but I think it was a very insightful workshop from your side. And I hope it gave additional ideas to our developers, what they can do with OceanNode for the hackathon. So again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you guys for coming on. Is there any last thoughts you want to share with the community?
Well, just thanks a lot for having us here today, and we're really looking forward to see what everyone builds. Like, we're genuinely excited, and the sky's the limit. Like, build whatever you can think of. Yeah, we're genuinely excited to see some of the submissions.
Yeah, I think the tech is now mature enough that we can get very interesting stuff coming out of these hackathon projects, and then obviously at least from our side, if there's anything special that we see further future potential in as well, follow grants on our side also possible. So guys, dig your heels in deep and try to build something cool. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Jamie and Bogdan, for coming on, and we'll see each other at one of the next workshops. Thank you all.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.